And so, again, I don't just talk about the bummers, but we are going to zone in on 3 specific failures from Abraham today. And we're going to think about what kind of picture that paints for the gospel. And so, movement 1, we're calling fear tempts us to take control. It's like the very beginning of the story. Things go wrong almost immediately. So Abram and Sarai are their names at the time. They've left and they're on their way to Canaan because God has said, leave your home, go to Canaan, go to the land I'll show you. I'm going to make of you a great nation. So they're on their way to do that. But then where they're staying, a famine strikes and they wind up in Egypt. And so this is the first time that Abram tries to assist God with the plan here. And so we're just going to get into it. He's trying to find a way to make their life in Egypt a little bit easier because Egypt can be kind of hostile, as we'll learn about later on. But in chapter 12, we're going to pick up in verse 11. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful, and when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt well with Abram. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go. And Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. It's a big wall of text. I think that's the most reading we're going to do all at once this morning. But that's a really rough look for Abram, like right here at the very beginning of the story. He offers up his wife to this king, and then he lies about who she is because he's afraid for his life, regardless of the fact that God has just told him that he's going to make a great nation of him, and there's a plan in place. But fear kicks in because Egypt is kind of violent, and so I need to find some way to mitigate this situation. And it's not technically a lie. It skeeves us out now, but like Abram and Sarai were related. It's different. It was different back then. And so there's a bit of truth to the statement. It's not fully a lie, but he's intentionally using half-truths to conceal reality. And he's trying to justify and rationalize this situation that he's cooked up. And so through his lie, he gains a lot. It says that Pharaoh started giving him all of this stuff. Thanks for letting me marry your sister. He's gaining things like servants and livestock, the things that made people wealthy at the time. This isn't in the notes, but just because you are successful does not mean that God is endorsing the steps you're taking to become successful. Sorry. Abram gains a lot through his lie. And not only does he not get killed like he thought he would, but Pharaoh lets him keep everything. Tell him, Lenny. And so this is rough. And luckily, Abram grows a lot throughout the story, and he gets so close with God and things are going so well that God changes his name to Abraham. That ha is like, it's indicative of like the breath of God, and it's a big deal. And so he's learned his lesson, right? Wrong. He does the same exact thing again post name change when he's supposed to have made this big turn. We're going to go to Actually, I don't have time, so I'm just going to summarize some of this part. He's staying in a place called Gerar. This is later on in the story. And that place is ruled by a man named King Abimelech. And his people are also not super hospitable. They're known for being kind of hotheads. And Abram is in the same situation. Or Abraham. He is Abraham now. Same situation. Say you're my sister so that they'll deal well with me because of you and I won't be killed. Literally the exact same situation. He goes into Gerar. Abimelech is into Sarah. And Abraham's like, cool, she's my sister. You take her. And he does. Same situation. And he keeps getting more and more stuff. And then the same thing happens, except instead of God inflicts a plague on Pharaoh's house with Abimelech. He closes the womb of all the women in his nation. Because, spoiler alert, this is also post-Isaac. Ishmael and Hagar. And so God is, I think at this point is like, no babies are happening right now. No more babies. We've already had this happen. I'm reading that into the text. But then God appears to Abimelech in a dream. And he says, you're going to die because you've taken a woman who's somebody else's wife. And Abimelech is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Slow your roll. I have no clue what you're talking about. Like, he told me that she was his sister. And God's like, I know that. I know that you don't know. And I also know that, like, you haven't touched her. You haven't consummated anything. I'm actually the one who stopped you from doing that supernaturally. You're welcome. Return this man's wife or you and all your house will die. And so Abimelech's like, no more shenanigans, wants nothing to do with whatever's going on with Abraham. And so Abimelech also confronts Abraham. And he's like, why did you tell me that she was your sister? Your God, this God that I don't even know, showed up in my dream and wants to kill me because I took your wife. And I didn't even know. And once again, Abraham is not punished. He gets to keep everything that he's gained. And Abimelech doesn't send him away with all this stuff. He says, look, this is all the land that I have. Stay anywhere you want. Yes, it's crazy. This guy's failing upward in so many ways. We're going to look at chapter 20, 14 through 16. Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them to Abraham and returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, behold, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you. To Sarah he said, behold, I have given your brother, husband, 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you, and before everyone you are vindicated. This king, who is a pagan king, he is not part of the plan, is acting more righteously here. He's making Abraham richer just to say, hey, I haven't done anything wrong here. She's innocent, right? Okay. God is not blessing the lie and accepting it as part of the plan here. Like I said, success isn't always an endorsement that you're doing the right thing. Sometimes success just kind of happens. Good things just kind of happen for you despite the ways that you might be cooperating or not cooperating with the plan. And so when fear takes over, because Abraham's fearing for his life in this situation, we do the same thing. When fear sets in, it's the same thing that happened in the garden. We were afraid God might be holding out on us. And so we tried to get control. And this is what Abraham's doing. He's trying to help the plan. He's trying to take control of the part of the plan that affects him. He's got to pass through these hostile nations. They might kill him because his wife's good looking. But God is not giving up on the plan. We've had several reset situations happen. We've got Seth, the substitute seed of the woman. We've got Noah. We've got Babel. Over and over, God keeps resetting the plan, starting over with the new generation. And it becomes even clearer that God is focused on humanity and he is committed to the seed of the woman and carrying that promise through. So there is no reset coming now. God is rolling with the punches as far as Abraham is concerned. And so moving on to number 2, impatience tempts us to manufacture God's promises. KV covered a little bit of this last week. Because arguably the biggest part of Abraham's story is the promise of Isaac and the miraculous birth of Isaac. Because he's going to become a great nation and his descendants are going to outnumber the stars. And it's a miracle because they're so old at this point when God even tells them that Isaac is going to happen. And then it takes even longer for Isaac to actually happen. And so if you notice that when they were in Egypt, they gained these all these different things. And among them was a female servant named Hagar. And so this is Sarah's turn to have a dumb idea. Abraham's dumb idea was, say you're my sister. Now Sarah has a dumb idea. Sarai said to Abram, behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Not true. The Lord is the one who told her that she would have children. Go in to my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her servant, and gave her to Abram, her husband, as a wife. So nobody's consulting God. Nobody's praying like, is this how the plan is supposed to go? They're just kind of like, oh, we'll help. And he went into Hagar and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. Now, Genesis takes the time to zoom into Hagar's story a little bit. So we're going to zoom into Hagar's story a little bit as well. This has been read for a long time as like, oh, Hagar's all high and mighty now because she's got a baby by the master of the house. This woman has been taken as a servant when she was already in Egypt. She's a slave. And then she's been given to these other people as property and has to leave with them. She's in a situation that she otherwise would not have been in. And then her mistress gives her to her master as a wife, and now she has this baby. You might look with a little bit of contempt at your situation. I don't think it's haughtiness or arrogance here. I think she's been dealt a really bad hand. And Sarai said to Abraham, may the wrong done to me be on you, even though it was her idea. I gave my servant to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me. It gets worse. But Abram said to Sarai, behold, your servant is in your power. Do to her as you please. Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her. This is God's special chosen family. Right? And so it's easy to tell this story from Abram's perspective. But like I said, Genesis isn't trying to set Abram up as this perfect hero. It slows down to look at Hagar here. Hagar is used and then marginalized. And then ultimately, she's already marginalized because she's a slave. But then they double down on that because now she's being sexually abused. And then they cast her out. That's crazy to me. But God sees her. God isn't content with just letting unfortunate byproducts of mistakes stay unfortunate byproducts of mistakes. We're going to go to same chapter, picking up in verse 9. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her. Kind of toxic, not going to lie. But he says, I will surely multiply your offspring so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. She gets a promise too. The angel of the Lord said, behold, you are pregnant and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. He shall be a wild donkey of a man, and his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, you are a God of seeing. For she said, truly here I have seen him who looks after me. And so Hagar has been thoroughly mistreated here. Can we agree? Yes. But God intervenes on Hagar's behalf, and he makes her a promise. And she says, this is the God who looks after me. She's Egyptian. She's been raised on all sorts of gods, and not one of them saw her. So in Genesis 21, this is after Isaac is born, Ishmael has already been born, and now there's all sorts of conflict going down because now Abram's got his 2 ladies here, his 2 babies here. Things are not going well. Sarah at this point crashes out even harder, and this is when she actually sends Hagar away. And Abram's like, it's your servant, like do whatever. Despicable. But she flees into the wilderness, and she's ready to abandon Ishmael so that she doesn't have to watch him die in the wilderness. But it says that God hears them, and he intervenes for him again, and he reminds him of the promise here in chapter 21. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation. And then God opens her eyes, and she finds a well in the wilderness, and they survive. And it said that God was with the boy, and he grew up to be skilled with the bow. Wild donkey of a man, and everyone's hand will be against him, and he will dwell over against. Those have been made to mean a lot of different things because Abraham's grandkids don't exactly get along. But God was with Ishmael. He didn't let Hagar and Ishmael stay victims of Abraham and Sarah's mistakes here. I wrote this last night, which is why I specified this morning. Faith in the plan isn't just believing God can do it. It's believing God can do it without our help. It will require action, but it does not require our help. Movement 3, God doesn't abandon the plan because of human failure. This is the whole story. Humanity consistently fails at the plan, and God consistently remains faithful to humanity here. So at this point, Abraham has lied to Pharaoh. He has lied to Abimelech. He has fathered a child through Hagar, and he's participated in the mistreatment of both Hagar and Ishmael. And so at this point, we've seen this happen before. It's time for God to pick a new chosen one and start over. Right? This is the rhythm that we've had so far. But that's not the way that God operates now. God has remained committed to this family because of his goodness. It's not the covenant that he makes is not based on Abraham's ability to carry it out. Adam fails, and Noah fails, and Abraham, as we know, fails. Spoiler alert, Isaac fails. Jacob fails. Moses fails. David fails. The Bible isn't a story of the great heroes of our faith who achieve all this success in the name of God. The Bible is a story of God who remains faithful to humanity. Genesis 21, the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoke to him. So at this point, if we are being objective, are Abraham and Sarah deserving or having earned the right to be God's chosen family here? Can we just keep it a buck? But the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And it happened at a time of which God had spoken. And so I've encountered a lot of people in my time throughout ministry who are convinced that they've made too many mistakes for God to have any kind of meaningful plan for their future. Like, maybe they believe that God's not necessarily mad at them, but they're definitely out on being any kind of use to the plan from here on out. But Abraham's story tells us otherwise. It's not just a story of great faith from Abraham. The plan keeps moving forward, not because Abraham's perfect, but because God is. Not because Abraham's faithful, but because God is. Movement 4, we're almost there. We're going to call this God's ultimate solution revealed. And so I said, we're going to look at these failures, we're going to look at these mistakes, and what kind of picture does it paint for the gospel? So after all the waiting, years and years pass, all these mistakes have happened. God and Abraham are in a much different position than they were at the beginning. A lot of context has filled in the gap between the promise and where we're at now. And so now it's time for God to update Abraham on the plan. God said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. And a lot of us know this story, like God is testing Abraham's faithfulness here. And it's easy to just be like, oh, God works in mysterious ways and nothing happened to Isaac anyway, so it's not weird. But I think let's just play a little game here. If I'm God in this situation and I'm at this point with Abraham and everything, I'm like, Abraham, clap once if you hear me, dude. Like, are you listening? It's not just, oh, let's see if he'll do what I tell him to. He has not been doing what God has been telling him to up to this point. And so I think it's that moment. Catch a bubble, Abraham. Because the promise is threatened here. This is like record scratch kind of moment. I see Isaac up on that pyre and it's like, I bet you're wondering how I got here kind of thing. But Abraham has already let fear push him to seize control and manipulate people. And so now he's in a situation where he's got to trust God completely. And so whether it's just a simple test of faith or God trying to recalibrate the thing after Abraham has screwed up so many times, God clearly has no plan to kill Isaac here. The promise is coming through Isaac. And so I've heard a lot of people teach it that like maybe Abraham believed that like Isaac would be raised from the dead or that something else would happen. Because we've got Isaac here, and Isaac says, behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham spoils what comes next because he says, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. And so this statement, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, is going to echo through the rest of Scripture at this point. We've heard about the seed of the woman who's coming to crush the serpent's head, but it's really starting to come into focus right here, how that's going to happen. But Jesus wasn't a burnt offering. Shut up. It's typology. It's a beloved son. Sorry, KB. It's a beloved son and a miraculous birth, a willing submission to the Father's plan. Isaac doesn't see a lamb, but he's carrying the wood up that mountain. But the difference comes in when Isaac is spared and Jesus is not. God stops Abraham short of the sacrifice. God doesn't get to stop himself short of the sacrifice. And so we've got this string of failures coming from our new main character. And each one has an effect on the individuals involved here. Pharaoh has plagues set on his house. Abimelech has all the wombs in his nation closed, and God threatens to kill him if he doesn't return Abraham's wife. And not the least of which are Hagar and Ishmael, who are thoroughly mistreated and cast out and left for dead. We've got victims of the chosen one's failure here. And it doesn't look like Abraham has to reap the consequences of those failures. Where is the justice in that? Who faces the consequences of Abraham's failure? Jesus. The lies and the fear and the selfishness and the manipulation and the mistreatment of people, God isn't ignoring it. And he certainly isn't endorsing it or accepting it as part of the plan. God has a plan to redeem that. He saw each one of those victims in their position. He healed Pharaoh's house. He opened the wombs of Abimelech's nation and spared his people. He saw Hagar and he provided for Ishmael. And he saved Isaac at the top of that mountain and said, I won't do it for myself though. And so wisdom for salvation. I want to focus in on three truths that we get from Abraham's story as we've read it today. Number one is that we often try to get God's promises our way. It's a fact. I've done it. If you haven't done it, I'm so glad you're at my church. You're going to legitimize us so much. Number two is that God remains faithful when we fail. And number three is that God ultimately bears the cost of our failure himself. The ram that God provides at the top of that mountain. They get there. Abraham's ready to light the pyre, get the thing going. And God says, stop. And a ram wanders out of a bush. Everything points forward to Jesus. Jesus carried a bunch of wood up a mountain, ready to go be a sacrifice. And so Abraham is regarded pretty often as a man of great faith. His faith is lauded through the rest of the Bible. And there's a good reason for that. I'm not trying to I know I seem like a really negative person. I'm not just trying to dunk on Abraham here. He really is faithful to a whole lot of the plan. And there's a lot of points in the story where, boy, does Abraham come through. But Abraham's story is not a story of how great Abraham is. It is a story about God's great faithfulness to us. It's a God who sees Hagar and Ishmael, a God who protected Abraham and Sarah while they were in hostile nations and let them get richer, even though they were lying to everybody. It's a story of a God who will carry humanity's failure all the way to the cross. And he is continuing to carry all of humanity's failure forward to a new world where all of humanity's failure will be undone. Because the same God that provided the ram at Mount Moriah and said, you don't have to reap the consequences of any of your failure here. He is going to embody himself as the solution. Amen. Why don't we stand? I didn't go over too far today. Thank you for being here. I know we physically gave Amy some flowers this morning, but on your way out, go pick up your kids, give her figurative flowers. She has done an incredible job for us, not just as a kids pastor, but as an admin. And I said it in the email. We've had people really step up. We've got a committee put together of people who really love our kids and understand their value to our community here. And so if you've been out of the loop and you've got kids and you're wondering what's going to happen, We've got it handled. We'll keep you posted. But I am excited and encouraged just by what's going on in our church, especially with our kids. And Amy's been a huge blessing to us, and we're excited for this new season of her life. She's still going to come to church here, so we'll see her still. We won't have an opportunity to miss her very much, but we just love her and are super grateful for her. So pats on the back, atta girls for Amy. And then remember, next week it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Bring your lawn chairs, lawn games. I'll try to. It's not supposed to be too hot in the morning, but I'll try not to go over too far. So we're just sitting out there in the park that way. But thank you for being here. Love you guys. Let's pray. Father, thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you that from the first song we sang to the last word in this lecture this morning, God, that you are faithful, and all the evidence that we see points to you being faithful no matter what, no matter how we fail, no matter where we miss the mark, and the hurt that we cause and the victims that we create along the way. You see us, and you're faithful to us in our mistakes, and you're faithful to us for healing where we've caused hurt. And that you embody the solution yourself. That you are, and when we're the victims of somebody else's mistake, God, you see us. You don't just cover our failures, you cover other people's failures too. And when we are victims of those mistakes, you see us, and you do not forget us. Thank you for your faithfulness to us tonight. Continue to go with us. Continue to make us Jesus well to the people around us so that we can minister the love and the hope of Christ. That Jesus is the only way to salvation in this life. It's not about an afterlife and punching our ticket. It's about salvation for now. Jesus is the solution, and his way is the way to salvation. Thank you for being with us. Continue to go with us. Keep us safe and bring us back next time. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. See ya.